They disapproved of him a month ago. They disapproved of him 2 months ago, and they still disapprove of him. I mean, the polling is quite steady despite. Ooh, let's see. This is interesting.
Hold on.
We want to see if we can.
I think we need to reboot, which means turn it off and on.
Maybe we might need to do that. Can we try? No, it doesn't seem to be.
Come on, people.
We got
it's
Penn.
Monday.
We've got Penn working. Well, we could toss it to John, or I could merely say this. Look, people disapproved of Trump 2 months ago. His disapproval rating was 64%. Last month, it was 66%. And this month, it is the same. 64%. Okay. So what we're talking about is that Americans, you can pay attention to me here, Americans still disapprove of the job that Donald Trump is doing on Iran, and 75% of independents disapprove of the job that Donald Trump is doing on Iran. So regardless of any deal that was made, the American people still disapprove of the job that Donald Trump is doing on Iran, despite whatever he's doing.
If you ever wondered if Harry didn't have all these numbers just bouncing around in his head, now you know. He doesn't even need the board. He just needs a chalkboard. And it's all good, and that is why we...
Look at this!
It worked!
Oh! We did it, and I got the numbers right.
You did.
Disapprove of Trump on Iran. In April, it was 64%. Now, in May, it was 66%, and now it is 64%. And the 75% of independents disapprove of Trump on Iran. The bottom line is this. No matter what deal has been made, the clear majority, 2/3 of Americans, still disapprove of the job that Donald Trump is doing when it comes to that conflict.
Let me ask you one more question. You know, when Americans look at this, do they think that Trump agreed to this deal and that he accomplished his goals, that he thinks, hey, I got this right?
Yeah, okay. So why did Trump agree to the deal? Well, it's simply this. Why Trump agree to the Iran deal? Wants the war to end or think the U.S. met its war goals? Look at this. 66% of Americans simply think he wanted to end the war. And even among Republicans, his own party, don't think that, in fact, the Trump administration met its war goals. In fact, they think he wants to just end the war. So this idea, hey, we won, everyone, we won. The American people don't think that is exactly what happened. What they think happened was Iran was fighting back. America looked at the chance of victory in terms of what Trump initially laid out as the chance of victory. They did not think that that was possibly going to be accomplished. We're talking about 2/3 of Americans, and even a majority of Republicans did.
Yeah, a lot of people looking at the Strait of Hormuz is saying it was open before, they just want it back open because we're all being affected by it. Harry Enten, it is a pleasure.
It is a pleasure. We'll come back later this week and we'll try and make sure all the tech is working.
John.
Harry Enten turned the Muggle wall into a magic wall before our very eyes. Right.
You know what? I try my very best.
You are magic.
I did
it.
Yeah, there we go. And there we go. I did it. Josh Shapiro is doing absolutely fantastically in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. In fact, he may have a historic win on his hand here. Okay, Josh Shapiro's lead in Pennsylvania gubernatorial polls. In February, he was up 20 points. You think that's good? How about he's now up 22 points in a poll that has just come out? And if this 22-point lead holds for the actual election, it would be the biggest win for any gubernatorial candidate in Pennsylvania in the entire 21st century. So Josh Shapiro is hoping he can take this and catapult himself into a 2028 run.
And we should point out, needless to say, Pennsylvania is a purple state. Pennsylvania is a state that Donald Trump has won.
Yes.
Pennsylvania is a state where Republicans do win there, so that's a big victory for a Democrat there. How is the president doing in Pennsylvania?
You know, one of the reasons why Josh Shapiro is doing so well in Pennsylvania right now is that President Trump is most certainly not doing well. He's doing poorly. In fact, take a look at this. Say that Trump's doing a poor job. Pennsylvania voters here again. In February, it was 51%. Now the poor job, which is the worst of the worst categories out of the four that are provided by Franklin Marshall. Look at this. A record high 58% of Pennsylvania voters say that Donald Trump is doing a poor job in office. And that, of course, is helping Josh Shapiro potentially win a historic win in a purple state. But it may also help Democrats down ballot as well.
Some of the very few swing districts in the country are in Pennsylvania. So what's the polling on the congressional races there?
Yeah, okay. You know what? I like to say it. As Pennsylvania goes, often goes the nation, at least over the last few election cycles, right? And you can see it here. If that is in fact the case, well, then Democrats may be in for a very good night come election night 2026. Because take a look at the U.S. House polling in Pennsylvania for 2026 on the generic congressional ballot. The Democratic lead is expanding. It was 5 points back in October. Look at where it stands now. 12-point advantage. And there are a number of key swing districts in that state, districts that Democrats are hoping to win in order to take back the U.S. House of Representatives. And as Johnny B. was saying, there was no mid-decade redistricting this decade in Pennsylvania. You see this large spread. You see how different it was from the 2024 result when Trump carried Pennsylvania. You say, oh, my goodness gracious, this could be a gold mine for Democrats.
So all this, what you would think would be good news for Josh Shapiro and Democrats in Pennsylvania, what are the prediction markets saying his chances are in the presidential race?
Yeah, now we're going to take a little bit of a twist and a turn, perhaps unexpectedly, right? Josh Shapiro is hoping that results like this, right? Democrats, if this holds, that Democrats, gain House seats. Hey, I brought Democrats along with me. Hey, look, I got a historic win potentially in a purple state. That will catapult me up for 2028. But look at this. The chance that Josh Shapiro is the 2028 Democratic nominee, according to the Couch prediction markets, it was 13%. He was in that top class. You go back to the beginning of last year. But now it's down to just a 5% chance. I think the question is, after Election Day 2026, if the polling right now holds, will these numbers start to climb back upwards and see if Democrats want a winner? Because at this point, if the polling's to be believed, Josh Shapiro is not only going to be a winner, he's going to be a historic winner, and more than that, he's going to help deliver a House majority nationwide for Democrats as well if this generic ballot polling holds.
Georgia, for the last 6 years, it really has been in some ways the most representative state in the country, the most interesting state in the country. Let's just talk about the odds for the Democrats going into November there, which would be holding a Senate seat, flipping the governor's mansion.
This may be the most promising year for Democrats in a midterm cycle since I was at least J-High, the longest since I was in middle school, the longest for this entire 21st century. What are we talking about? Well, we're talking about the fact that if you look at the chance that the Democrats win both governor and Senate, look at that. Keisha Lance Bottoms, you mentioned a 52% chance of winning the governorship there. And then John Ossoff, a clear favorite on the Senate side, an 82% chance. Remember when he won back in 2020, his first term into 2021, he won in the runoff in 2021. It was a real fight. This is indicating that he is a clear favorite. He is the first Democrat to be a clear favorite for a Senate race in a generation.
I was up all night counting those numbers
Yes.
on the magic wall, and it was 5 votes here, 5 votes there, now an 82% chance to win. There's been a long time since Democrats won both a Senate seat and a governor's mansion in the same election.
Yeah, so, you see blue here. This is a close race. This is a toss-up, but the mere fact that Bottoms has a real shot of winning. And then Ossoff being a clear favorite here. I had to go back through the record books. The last time that in the same year a Democrat won both the governor's race and the Senate race in Georgia was 36 years ago. It was 1990. You had Sam Nunn winning re-election. You had Zell Miller being elected governor for the first time. Of course, Zell Miller became considerably more conservative down the road. But what we are looking at right now, the potential is for a historic election in Georgia for Democrats, the first time potentially since all the way back in 1990 in which they won both the governor's race and the Senate race in the same year. Georgia looking a lot more blue than, at least during my lifetime, it usually is.
It was a very different Georgia back then, and these were
different.
very different candidates back then. And you can almost see that change, or the change shifting blue over the years in Georgia, Harry.
Yeah, when I was a kid, people would refer to Georgia being, a blue state back in the day, but I only remember it being a red state. I'm going to make this a 4 right here. How much more Republican that Georgia leans than the U.S. in presidential elections? Back in 2012, Georgia was 12 points more Republican, 2016, 7, then 4, and then just 1 this past cycle. Georgia is moving to the left as migrant patterns take place in the United States, as white college degree folks around the Atlanta suburbs move to the left. Georgia becoming more and more purplish, dare I say blue this cycle, and that is why it wouldn't be surprising to me if you get a 2 for Democrats sweeping both the governorship and the Senate races because Georgia's moving left. You see it on the presidential level
Just
quite
as
well.
representative of the country. In some ways, as Georgia goes, so goes the nation there. There's one other number that may factor into this Senate race, at least in Georgia.
Yeah, one other little nugget. Who has raised the most money for any Senate nominee in the entire country? It's John Ossoff with $60 million. I think he might be a prolific fundraiser, maybe something he might be using down the line in 2028 if he runs for president. Georgia may be telling for the future, at least for this gentleman.
That's a lot of money. All right.
It's a lot of dough right now.
I don't think that Israel has played a bigger role in any district any more than in this particular district. We are talking about New York's 10th district. I mean, chance to be the New York 10 Dem nominee. Dan Goldman, the incumbent, a hero of the Trump first impeachment trial among Democrats, only has a 3% chance of actually holding on to his Democratic designation to be the Dem nominee in this particular race. Brad Lander, who was last seen running for mayor in New York City, 98% chance. The reason why Dan Goldman is in trouble is because of the issue of Israel. He is seen by many in that district as being too pro-Israel. Lander has the endorsement of Zohran Mamdani, who, you know, obviously when it comes to the issue of Israel, has been much more pro-Palestinian than pro-Israeli.
Of course, this is what the Kalshi prediction markets are saying about this race tomorrow, but you can look at any of the polls that have been out there.
This matches up with the internal polling 100%.
All right. Democrats in general, how has their thinking changed on Israel?
Yeah, okay. So why are we seeing this right now in the Kalshi prediction markets? Well, it's part of a broader national picture, right? I mean, just look at the change over the past few years. You know, you go back to late 2023, who Dem voters sympathized more with. It was basically an even split, but perhaps slightly more with the Israelis than the Palestinians, 34% to 31%. Look at this Israeli percentage, though. Down through the ground, look at this, now just 16%. This Palestinian percentage, about doubled. The percentage of Democrats who say they sympathize more with the Palestinians has about doubled in just 2.5 years. Look at that, from 31% to now the clear majority of Democrats now say they sympathize more with the Palestinians than the Israelis, a 60% to 16%. So a 3-point spread in favor of Israel has become what? A 44-point spread in favor of the Palestinians in terms of who Democratic voters sympathize more with.
And that's Democratic voters writ large. What about Jewish Democrats?
Yeah, so if you know anything about New York 10, you know that it is one of the most heavily Jewish congressional districts in the country. And so you might say to yourself, hey, why what applies nationally would necessarily apply in New York 10? Well, this is one of the more interesting questions and crosstabs that I have seen. Did Israel commit genocide in Gaza? This is among Jewish Democrats. And even among Jewish Democrats, the majority of Jewish Democrats say yes. 52% do believe that Israel committed genocide in Gaza compared to just 39% who say no.
Very, very interesting. And look, support among pro-Israel groups has been a campaign issue across the country.
Yeah, absolutely. Zohran Mamdani, you know, I mentioned him in the early part of the segment, said in a rally this past week that AIPAC is quote-unquote monsters. This may actually play in a Democratic primary. Among Democrats, AIPAC backing makes you less likely to vote for them or more likely. In 2024, it was 34% who said less likely to vote for them, but now it's the majority, up 19 points in 2026 to 53%. Just 5% of Democrats actually say that AIPAC backing makes them more likely to vote for a candidate. So Zohran Mamdani seems to be on the side of Democratic voters. Of course, we'll see if that plays out in the polls